Okay, so today we are going to introduce section 5.1, and it's just a real quick introduction to the decimal number system. So what I've done is I've made a worksheet for you, and then embedded in this sheet are problems that you can pause the video and try, and those are the ones you're going to hand in. And then at the end of the video is a bonus quiz, and if you do that, which I recommend you do, I'll replace any quiz that you've taken or any in-class worksheet with whatever score you get on this. So if you've missed something and you get a 9 on this, it'll be a bonus and that'll replace your low score with a 9. Alright, so I made this chart on how to read decimals. So there's some just real quick steps for writing and reading a word in decimals. So I have this number written out, 17 with a decimal, 758, and I want to know how to write this out in words. Okay, so number 1, write the whole number part in words. So I'm going to write out 17. When you see the decimal, that triggers the word and for the decimal part. And now we're going to write the decimal part in words as if it were a whole number. So this, if I cover this up, this number would be 758. So 758, and then we have to tack on a word to let the viewer know that this is the decimal part of this number. And we're going to just refer back and forth to this chart. So since the 8 falls in the 3rd position, we're going to tack on the word thousandths. So we would read this number 17 and 758, tens, hundreds, thousandths. Notice the TH. Alright, so let's give a couple a try. So it says, write each decimal number in words. Alright, well this is just a real basic one because we don't have any whole number. So we're just going to write this as 6. And since it's in the first position of the decimal, it's 6/10. Alright, let's try this one. So this number would be 2. The decimal will be and. We write this number out, 82. Tenths, hundredths. And that's what we tack on the end to let the viewer know that that was my decimal point. Alright, let's try another one. We've got 21. Decimal point is and. Tenths, hundredths, thousandths. So I'm going to write 93 thousandths. So I would pause the video now. Do these 3. These are some for you to try. This is what I'm going to be grading. We're going to hand this in our next class. So pause, do those out, and then turn the video back on. So let's write out a decimal number in standard form. So I'm going to give it to you in words, and you have to write it out in standard form. So here we go. 48. The and remembers the decimal point. So 48 and. Okay, 26. Now this is in the hundredth position. So I know I'm going to end in the tenths hundred. So I know it's just going to be a 2 position number. So I'll fill in the 26. 6 and 95 thousandths. Okay, 6 and. It's thousandths. So I have to go tenths, hundredths, thousandths. So I have to end my number in this position. So I'm going to put the 95 there because I have to end it on the thousandths position, and we'll just fill in that remaining space with the 0. So again, I would pause the video. These are what I'm going to be grading. Here are some for you to try. Just pause the video, work those through, and then when you're done, turn the page and keep on going. Alright, so once you can read a decimal, it's really easy to write it as a fraction or as a mixed number. Because you would read this as 7/10. So its equivalent fraction would be 7/10. This is read as hundredths. So its fraction would be 51 over 100, 51 hundredths. This would be read as tenths, hundredths, 5 hundredths. So its equivalent fraction would be 5 over 100. But again, we're going to write these in simplest form, so a better version would be 5 over, instead of 5 over 100, if I did my little mini factor tree, 100 can be written as 20 times 5. Those 5s will cancel. You need a placeholder of 1 in that numerator, so that would be 1 over 20. Okay, last one, 2 and 4/10. So 2, there's my 4/10. But again, this can be simplified. Let's see why. 4 is 2 times 2. 10 is 2 times 5, so the 2's will cancel. So that's why I have the best version would be 2 and 2/5. All right, so let's fill in this chart. All right. So I'm going to give the answers down here, and then you can fill that in as you see fit. All right, so here's the example they worked out for us. So let's try in words. So if it says 8/10, that would be the number in just standard form. In fraction form, 8/10 would look like this. But again, that can be simplified since they're both even. Right, did my little mini factor trees, so those will cancel. So the best fraction form would be 4/5. 5/10. Okay, so decimal point and a 5. The fraction form would be 5 over 10 for 5/10, and I'm sure we all agree that 5/10 is 1/2. All right, this one in words. So it goes tenths, hundredths, thousandths. So I'm just going to write that number out, 77. And then tack on the word thousandths. To let the viewer know it's 3 decimal places for that decimal. And then as a fraction, 77 divided by 1,000. So this one again, 3 decimals, tenths, hundredths, thousandths. So I'm just going to write out 19 and then thousandths. And again, for the fraction form, 19 over 1,000. All right. So comparing decimals is actually quite easy. I gave you an example here. And I like this helpful hint. So what I tend to do when I'm comparing fractions or decimals is I try to make the decimal lengths the same by filling in zeros where necessary. So they told you that 7 and 6/10, you're allowed to add zeros after that last digit to the right of the decimal point, and it doesn't change the value of your number. Okay? All right. So these two numbers are the same length. So what I do is I compare positions. First positions, both are a 1. So far that has no difference. Second positions, they're both a 3. Okay, here we go. This is where the first number differs. This is 0.8, this is 0.2. I'm going to eat that number because that's the bigger number. So this is what I was talking about. These numbers aren't the same length, so I find it hard to compare them. So since this is a 3-digit number, I'm going to make this a 3-digit number. So we'll start off comparing the first digit. The non-zero digit would be 5, no change there. Here we go. This has a 4, this has a 0 in the second position. I'm going to eat that number because that is a bigger value. Alright, again, these aren't the same length, so I like having a 0 there to compare them. First numbers are different, but remember, these are negative. So on any number line, the further to the left you are, the bigger the number. So if we had to put on this number line, if I divide this up into tenths, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. -3/10 would be about right there. And -7/10 would be about right there. So even just, maybe we could tack on the 2 there, but does everyone agree? I'm hoping that since this is further to the left, this is a bigger number on the number line. So I would eat that -0.32. And this last one, right, again, this has 4 digits after the decimal, so I would just fill in with zeros, and then it's pretty obvious that those numbers would be equal. All right, last little bit. Here are some for you to try. Pause the video. Go ahead and fill in your inequality symbols, and then when you're ready, turn the video back on. Okay, last little bit is rounding decimals. And really, the rule for rounding is no different than what we had before. So here's an example. I want you to round this number to the nearest tenth. So what we did in the past is we underlined the tenth position and looked directly to the right. Locate the digit to the right of the tenth place. Since the digit to the right is less than 5, we keep the 2, and then we drop all the any of the numbers that are to the right of that. So 736 and 2/10. Okay, so let's round that to the nearest hundredth. Okay, so here's my hundredth position, tenths, hundredths. I look to the right, so either keep the 2 or make it higher. Since that digit to the right is greater than 5 or greater, it's 7, we want to make that number higher. So then our choice would be 3/100ths. Same rules for rounding that we always had. Okay, so let's give them a shot together. So to the nearest tenth, I underline the 10th position and then I look to the right. Do I want to keep the 6 or make it higher? Since that number is less than 5, we want to keep the 6. Round this big number to the nearest tenth. Underline the 2, that's my 10th position. I look to the right. Since that number is less than 5, I want to keep the 2. So if we round this number to the nearest hundredth, I underline the 100th position. I look to the right. Do we want to keep that or make it higher? Since that is a 2, we want to keep it. And then we make everything to the right zeros. Last one, tenth, hundredths, thousandths. We underline the 2. We look to the right. Since that number is 5 or greater, we want to make the 2 higher. Okay, so instead of keeping the 2, we're going to make it higher. So here are some for you to try. It's a nice big chart. Notice the tenths and then the tens. Okay? So I recommend doing some scrap work, underlining if you need to, so that I can see where your rounding was, like what position you were looking for when you looked to the right. So you want to hand this in at our next class. And then here's a bonus. So if you would like to do the bonus and have a low score replaced with whatever you get on this, as long as it's better, I highly recommend that you do that. This should be just a real easy, real quick take home. Okay, so I will see you on Monday.